What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a review on the 2019 StreetBob that I have. I've got a little over 3,400 miles on it now, and I hadn't done a review, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about the specs on the bike, what Harley did right, what they could have done better, what I do like and what I don't like about the bike. What I don't like about the bike is pretty minuscule. I actually love the bike, but they could have done a few things better on it. So let's get into it. We'll start with the motor. It's a 107. It's got 86 horsepower at 5,000 RPMs and 107 foot-pounds of torque at 3,000 RPMs. So let's talk about that for a minute. It's got quite a bit of pep for this size bike. This is the biggest one that I've had so far, and I really like it. I bought this bike right before the Lowrider S came out with the 114. I think it'd be really fun with a 114 in it. I don't really know why Harley went with the 107, but it doesn't hurt this bike to have a 107 in it. I think it'd be really fun with the 114, but it's actually got quite a bit of snappiness to it, and I think it's pretty good for this bike. If you did a stage 2 in it, would be really nice. But maybe some exhaust to open it up a little bit. But I think they did okay with this bike. It's kind of one of Harley's things. They do some of the weird stuff, and that's kind of one of the things where I think they could have done a little bit different with this bike and put the 114 in it. But it's not a terrible bike. It's not terrible for this bike, so it's not bad. It's really good. It's not bad, but they could have done a little bit different. Let's see. Let's see what it is. It's a six-speed bike, of course, which is great. It's not like the Sportsters that are 5-speed that are kind of ridiculous. So let's see. It says for this bike, which we'll get into the tank. One of my main problems with the bike is the fuel capacity on the tank. It's 3.5 gallons. I think they could have went a little bit bigger. I like the design of the tank. The shape is really nice. But I think they could have went a little bit bigger, maybe got 4 gallons, 4.5 gallons, instead of the 3.5 gallons that is on the bike, and still got the shape and the look they were going for. 3.5 gallons is kind of small. Even where it says it can get 42 miles per gallon, which I think is a little bit hopeful. I don't think it gets 42. It might get 40, 35, because if you're doing 80 miles an hour down the road, it's not going to get 42. Definitely not. But the design looks great. The badges look awesome, especially on this black. That kind of copper and black tone is really awesome. And I like the way they cleaned up the tanks for this year model. They took the dash off, which I really never had a problem with the dash, because I've always been a fan of the Dyna style of bikes, the wide glides, etc., with the dash on the tank. So either way, really looks good. But this really does look good. But I think they really could have gotten away with a 4.5 gallon tank, or even a 5 gallon tank, which is what the Lowrider S has on them, and still been a really neat looking bike. It would have really cleaned up the gap there in the front, but even just a 4.5 gallon tank would have still looked okay. But let's move on here. It's a single disc in the front. A lot of people talk about that they have problems stopping in the front. I've never run into that. I think it stops plenty well. So I don't know what people are talking about in different videos that I've seen where they say it doesn't stop good enough. I think it stops just fine. They could have probably done dual discs in the front, but it would have taken away from the wire wheel look, which I think is an awesome look, especially for this type of bike. That black and chrome really sets it off. Let's see, the wheelbase, 64.2 inches. It's a short bike, and the rake on it is real short. It's a 30-degree rake, which really allows for you to flick it over in the corners and ride the corners over, you can drag peg on it pretty good and not feel like you're going to fall over. I drag quite a bit of peg on it. Let's move on here. Single disc in the front, single disc in the rear. It's 630 pounds, which is pretty light compared to a lot of their other bikes. I mean, not compared to the Sportsters, but they're bigger bikes. Like this is, I would consider their middleweight bike. When you get anything bigger than this, you're running another 200 pounds on top of it, so another 800 pounds. I switched from this bike to, or from a bagger to this bike, and it felt like a sport bike. So when you get on this bike, it really doesn't feel like a 600-pound bike when you're riding it. Now, if you're flipping it around off the kickstand, I mean, you can tell it has some weight in it, but it's not like a bagger, definitely. Talk about a little bit of the design when they switched frames. They went to the soft-tail version. You can see back here, the StreetBob, when they were the Dyna, they had the springs on the back mounted to the swing arm, and now they don't. It's underneath the seat. That design is pretty neat. It actually cleans it up a lot. It looks way better, and it's got different shock adjustments underneath the seat. They sell you a tool where you can adjust the ride on it, and it's by weight. It's in the book. Let's see, what else is there? It's got mid controls on it, of course. I didn't know if I'd like that or not, being that I had never had any with mid controls. The Sportster I had sort of like a hybrid. They were mounted forward, but they weren't exactly forward controls. They were aftermarket. So anyway, it took some getting used to, but I actually like that position. It kicks your knees up and it feels like you're attacking the road, like you're attacking the corners, and I actually like that quite a bit. A lot of people put forward controls on these things, and that's where they mount. They mount down here underneath the that's the brake. Yeah, that's the brake booster down there. So a lot of people like it with forward controls on it, and I think it would be more comfortable for longer rides with forward controls. So that's kind of a preference thing. Move on. This has an aftermarket seat on it, of course, and we're going to do a video about the seat. The stock seat for me is terrible. If you're a bigger person trying to ride this bike, the stock seat is just terrible. I couldn't ride for more than about 45 minutes and without hurting. The seat was just bad, and it wasn't, if you're a bigger guy or girl or whatever, you couldn't sit on the seat without falling off. If you romped on the gas, you'd slide off the back, or if you couldn't hardly sit on it correctly because you were just too big. It looked great. It looked like the old school type motorcycle seats, but it just wasn't comfortable, and it wasn't right. So I went with the Lucky Dave seat, and that's just helped me quite a bit. Of course, it's a belt driven final drive, which I like that. Took that chain guard off, makes it look better. Got some pretty narrow tires on the back, if you can see that, the glare kind of dark back here. I think this is the narrower tire. I don't know what the Sportsters have on them, but I know the Lowrider S's have a little bit wider tire. I like these tires. They're easier to lay over in a corner. So yeah, I like these a little bit better. I think they did a good design on this bike. Everything's blacked out. You know, the frame is blacked out. The blinkers are blacked out. The swing arm's blacked out. The motor's mostly blacked out. It's got some live edges on it, but the exhaust covers are blacked out. The exhaust underneath it's chrome, but you can just barely see it. The wheels, for the most part, is black. You know, you've got some live stuff here that's polished or whatever. And then the only thing mostly that's chrome on the front is the top part of the forks here. But you need a little bit to break it up, but I don't think they did too much, and which I like. They've got the what's the new one that's like the limited or the Softail something or other that's new for like $1,000 less than this, and everything's chrome. You know, chrome frame and chrome handlebars and chrome this and chrome that, chrome blinkers, and everything's chrome. It's cheaper than this, but all this is blacked out. This looks way better, I think, personally. I don't like a whole lot of chrome, but if that's your deal, you can go with that. I dig the handlebars. Everything's wired internally. It kind of makes for changing out controls a little bit hard, but it cleans it up quite a bit. It makes it look a lot better. Another thing about these new Harleys, the buttons are really nice. Everything clicks over really nice. The thing I like about this is the dash here, the instrument panel. I thought it was going to be a little bit small when I looked at it, but it's actually not that bad. And you really don't have to look down too much, and you can see pretty well in the day. You see really well at night, and it tells you what all you need to know, RPMs and everything. Of course, you're not going to get temperature or anything like that, but that's not, but you pretty much need all you need to know here. Now, some of the things that I don't like are pretty much just the seat, which, that's just a thing they did. The gas tank could have been a little bit bigger, but that was a design thing. And one of the things that I don't like is the metal that they put on the motor and the derby cover here. I don't know what kind of metal they put on there, but it's not stainless, because anytime you wash it, it gets stained. I got some stains down there on the derby cover. I don't know if you can see it in the video. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. But it got stained, and you can't clean it off. It won't come off. I tried to polish it, and it's not chrome for sure, because if you try to use steel wool on it, it scratches it up. I used it in one little spot just to test it, and it for sure won't come off. It for sure scratches it up. So I'm not sure why they did that. Those rocker box covers can't be that expensive to chrome plate. And the derby cover for sure wasn't that expensive to chrome plate. And if you weren't going to chrome plate it, over here they got black. They got the black Harley Davidson. They should have just done black over there. So that's just the kind of picky things about it. Just chrome plate those little things. I mean, you chrome plated some of the other stuff. They could have chrome plated the other, like this stuff up here. It's not chrome plated. It's just kind of awful looking. After a while, it's going to get awful looking. It's not bad, and I guess I'll just eventually replace that. But if you don't have to, then it's that much better if you don't have to. But it's just a few little chintzy little things that they could have done that really wouldn't have cost them a whole lot of money, and they could have worked into the price of the bike, and it really wouldn't have been that big a deal. But overall, it's a great bike. Now, it's not a touring bike, for sure. It's a cruiser, and that's what they call it. It's a cruiser. We just went on a almost 1,500 mile trip. We went 500 miles down there, did a 400 mile kind of ride around trip, and then did 500 miles back to the house. And it was kind of rough on the way back. The way down there wasn't really that bad. But I think you can make it do what you want to do, but it was kind of tough. Now, for what this bike is, it's perfect for what it is. If you're riding around town, if you're riding around your state, you're bombing down the interstate, it's perfect for that. If you're cutting corners, cutting turns, doing twisties, having fun, doing stuff like that, it's fine. But making long trips just the way it sits right now, with no saddlebags or no fairing or any windshield or anything like that you can take off and ride or whatever. But something like that, it'd be kind of tough. It was kind of tough. So I'm not going to fault it for that because it wasn't made for that. But I will tell you this, it does ride straight down the road at 85, 95. I did 100 miles an hour on it. It wasn't shaking down the road. It wasn't bobbing and weaving. It wasn't doing anything weird, that you might expect a short motorcycle to do, or, so it wasn't doing anything weird that I thought, well, man, this kind of sucks for this motorcycle to do. So you can make it do what you want it to do. It just might be tough to do it on it. And what it does what it's supposed to do great. So you can't go wrong with this motorcycle. Just know that it fits in its space perfectly, and if you want it to do more than what it fits in its space to do, you may have to make it work, or you may have to work at it. But just know that it works out pretty good. But anyway, I think it's going to be the end of the video. We'll do another separate video on the Lucky Dave seat, actually get into that more in depth, and we'll also do a more in-depth video on the cruise control, how well it works. And yeah, we'll see y'all on the next one. Be safe out there and take her easy. Bye.